Hello and welcome to episode 70 of The Daily Light. So I'm here about to shoot my video and my kids are home sick. They're both sick. But, my little Ashton has so much energy that even though he's sick and running a low fever and coughing, he's still all over the place like a little ninja. And he was just here. I'm thinking to myself like, kid, calm down. I'm trying to shoot a video. But then I remembered that I'm still a mom. And that's my primary focus, my children. And it got me thinking about Mark 10, in which Jesus says to let the children come to him. And I'm going to read it to you. So Mark 10, chapter 13, starting on verse 13, it says, "People were bringing their little children to him and have him touch them, and the disciples rebuked them for this. When Jesus noticed it, he was very angry and said, 'Let the children come to me and don't stop them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it.' Then he took the children in his arms and laying his hands on them, blessed them." Yesterday, I did episode 69 of The Daily Light with my father, and the response was overwhelming. And there's so many people that commented on how beautiful it is that father and daughter are doing these videos about God. But I've shared before that I did not want to go to church when I was little. I did not want to pray when I was little. And, my parents really had like a return to the faith. My parents were raised Catholic, but like so many Catholics had fallen away and stopped going to church until they had their reversion when I was about maybe 12 years old. And after that, it was church every Sunday, and every night we had this mandatory prayer time, which I did not want to do. I was 12, but my brothers were younger. I'm the oldest. So they were like kicking, screaming, everything, but my father still made us. And I'm glad he did, because we wouldn't have this relationship that we have now if he hadn't planted that seed back then. I wouldn't have the faith that I have now if my parents, as parents, knowing what they know, had made me do it back then when I didn't want to, because that stayed with me. And I even think about now my own parenthood, how the hardest thing if you have young kids is taking your kids to church. Because when they start screaming and doing what normal kids do, everyone else seems to turn around and act like they've never seen a kid before. Like they don't know what it's like to have a toddler that has a mind of their own and wants to do their own thing and start screaming and moving around. I mean, I've gone through mass sometimes with my kids literally under the pews, crawling under the pews all the time. Just the other day during the consecration, during the mass, Chub Chub was singing, "Row, row, row your boat." This really happens to me. And our inclination, our tendency is to think, I'm going to stop going. And there was times that I really thought about stop not going to mass. Times where I stopped going with my husband so we can each take a shift going to mass. But how wrong are we in doing that? Because then we're not planting the seeds in our children. And just like Jesus rebuked the apostles for not letting the children go to him, we need to rebuke that in us that right now that tells us not to let our children come to us when we're praying, not to have them included, not to take them to mass. We want so many things for our children, but it needs to start with us, because we are the example that they're going to follow. So unless you are praying actively with your children every day, I pray with my children every morning and every night before they go to bed. If you aren't doing this, if you aren't taking your kids to church, like I really don't care how bad your kids are. And it's funny because a lot of people say to me like, "Oh, Audrey, you don't know my kids." No, you don't know my kids. My kids, especially that Ashton. You have to take them. You have to include them, because we want so many wonderful things for our children, but by now we should know the most important thing they should have is faith. Because they're going to struggle and one day they're going to be without us. But I know that if they have God, they have everything they need. Their health may falter, their finances may falter, their relationships may falter. They have God, they have everything they need. So I do them a disservice if I keep them from church, if I keep them from a life of prayer. I pray today that you reconsider your relationship with your children, or any children in your life, nieces, nephews, little cousins, anyone who's in your care. Reconsider that relationship and bring them to Jesus. Have a blessed day.